Hey, my name's Eric. I'm making a game. That game is called The Godkiller Chapter 1. I like to demo the game, but right now it's a little bit hard to demo it because what I'm doing at the moment is adding controller support to the game, and to start to do that, I had to switch over to Unity's input system, and that makes it so that the input manager system, the old legacy version of the same thing, is disabled. So all the code I have for controlling the player is basically disabled while I try to get the new input system to work, and that seems to be the best way for me to get controller support going. I could have used the old input manager. I don't know, maybe I should have. Maybe it would have been a lot simpler for me with my already working code to continue using the input manager and just add some stuff in there for detecting the controller input. But my intuition says go forward with the input system. I also tried a third-party package called In Control. And sadly, with this 2-year-old Xbox One controller hooked up to a Mac, it was unable to detect the stick movement and the D-pad movement. And so, hey, Martin, good to see you. I've had a fun time trying to mimic your voice to people when I'm explaining the concept of God in the game. And, you know, I'm like, God arrives, and he's a big pair of floating hands, and he goes, hello, it's okay, and then people ask me, well, what does God sound like? And I say, a British man with a deep voice. So then I do my shitty British accent. Anyways, been thinking about your voice performance quite a bit over the last few days. Yeah. But yeah, real happy with it. And so now I'm trying to get this Xbox controller working. And it's just going to be some coding in this session today and some troubleshooting. Because people counseled me that I should not release the game without controller support. They said players will automatically skip over it or leave bad reviews if I don't have controller support. So let me put this controller support in the game, and then we can all use our Xbox controllers and PlayStation controllers and whatever other devices we've got laying around. All right. So what I got going, yeah, it does feel nicer to play games with a controller, even when a keyboard would work perfectly fine. So I'm actually looking forward to playing the game with this. So I just created some code that would just output if I'm moving left, up, down, or right, up, down, right, down, up, down, right. I've noticed that the what do you call it? The left stick is pretty sensitive, so for the Godkiller it would not be good for it to be as sensitive as it is now. And I will at some point need to do... Oh, I already got rid of that image that I'd created. I didn't save it. Okay. Oh well. So I might need to do something kind of like create like areas that the stick can be inside of that trigger the up, down, left, right instead of using the full quadrant. But anyways, the other thing I need to do is keep track of when the buttons are let up on. So let's see. I feel like I want to rename these though to make more sense to my game. Oops. I'm in play mode. Let's turn that off. Okay, let's see. North, down. I want to write some more next year after I've got this released. I seem to jump around between different mediums, I guess. So for a while I'll be like real into Discord. For another while I'll be real into Twitch or something else. Yeah, but I do like writing. Thanks. I'm glad you like what I've done. And there's more also I want to write about VO stuff. So one of the things that is not directly related to the game is I just don't feel like the tools that we have now and the processes around recording VO and maybe selecting all the different takes that are going to go in, editing that, I don't think it's efficient. I don't think it's very good. There's stuff that I'd like to, some tools I'd like to make. I can justify making them for myself, that they would help out, like Chapter 2 production. It's almost like I don't really want to write the tools. I'm just irritated they don't already exist, and I wish somebody else would have already created them. So I may write some more around that too when I start making these tools. Another topic about VO in particular that I'd like to clarify my thoughts a little bit before I get into it, but I'm not real happy with the economic structures around it. Basically, you've got this sort of, you've got the SAG-AFTRA bucket, which is people that have kind of made it. Then you've got everything. Then you've got everything underneath of it, and it's kind of all lumped together as sort of. There's no middle class of VO, I guess. That's what I'm getting at. There's no distinction between the people that just barely figured out how to record and get a decent environment together, and people that have got like a little more professionalism and skills. and SAG-AFTRA, or I mean, I don't know what the equivalent union type situation is in the UK. Maybe it's a much better situation over there, but in the US, SAG-AFTRA is just a giant jump up. Once you get into SAG-AFTRA, you cannot, well, you can't work on projects that are not SAG-AFTRA, which means the only reason why you would enter that union is you have reasonable prediction that you'll be able to get a number of projects that are SAG-AFTRA. Or you've got people that are just kind of like on the sly after they've had, some cool project that was a SAG-AFTRA project that paid well. Their work dried off, their work dried up for that level. So on the sly, they go out and they violate their union contract as an economic necessity. They have to slum it because there just isn't like enough work up in that tier for them. So that's the thing that I'm working on in my head. Hey, Cicada. And you asked about could I sell the tools? I wanted to just get them in use. Yeah. So, Martin, it feels to me like there ought to be something a little more middle tier. Like where people say, for example, they're only going to accept work at voice acting club level 1 rates or something like that. And then if you get like people that are sticking to that, then on the casting director side, you'd say, okay, do I want to work with people in this middle tier here that are pretty much guaranteed to be at a certain level with their equipment and skills and everything? If so, then I will pay these middle tier rates. But the SAG-AFTRA rates, they're just so out of touch with this other class of project, which is like most of them. So that's the thing that I'm toying with in my head. But I'd like to write something about that situation sometime next year. Okay, let me see these comments that Cicada made in Discord. Yeah. So I'm okay. So Cicada, I'm realizing now that as I'm writing this eventing system, I'm basically recreating polling, because I don't want some kind of action to happen in the game in response to, the Unity built-in one. I don't want some kind of action in the game to happen directly in response to the player, pressing on their controller. What I want is in the game update loop to check and see if the button's currently up or down. And I started in the eventing system here to say I'll do up and down events, or basically start and release, whatever what is it? Started and canceled. All right. And then from that, I would have just set a variable showing the current state of the control. And then the input code would go and pick up that variable. So I basically, if I continue with this approach, I've taken what is probably originally inside that Unity black box, a polling mechanism. They converted it to an eventing interface, and I'm converting it back to a polling interface so I can pick it up in the update loop. So it's obviously stupid. I'm sure it'll work too. The engineer in me hates it, I do know I can get the input though. That does give me like a feeling like whatever stupid thing I have to do is probably going to work out. Let's see. Let me see if I can. Yeah, you bet. So go over here. Here's the player controls. This what you're talking about, the input action object? Yeah, so I set all these guys up, right? Right, yeah. Okay, have done that. This is my test class right here. It inputs the controls. Maybe that's what you meant. Maybe you meant something else. Yes. Yes. Okay. Like what kind of field? Public input action. Okay. Sure, you bet. Okay. Maybe it's controls. Yeah, I get you. Okay, let me see. So there's the gameplay actions. I'm going to ignore that. I think we want devices. Or, wait a minute, can I do... Wait, do these... Okay. So let's just... Oh yeah, you're right. Okay. So let's call this one fun. That one's got definitions on it. I'll just rename this to fling input. I don't think this needs to be public. Let me see. So if I do void update, okay, I've got controls gameplay enabled down here. So let me just see what's available on this. There's triggered. I suspect it does work. I do like this idea I can just pull off the input actions if they've got enough information accessible via their properties. Anyways, let me look at the... Okay. Let's look at that. Okay, so say button or okay, float or bool. is flinging equals fling input read value float if is flinging fling y. What is this? So yeah, maybe this is gonna work. Yeah, let's just try it. I mean, I didn't do a lot of checking for correctness there. I'm being very optimistic, but yeah. Okay, so good there. Okay, so that didn't work. Okay. Oh, that worked. Oh, my Xbox controller fell. My Xbox controller turned off because it's trying to save batteries. That's why it didn't work. But the key mapping worked, and now that my controller is coming back on, maybe it'll work. Stupid thing where it's blinking and not pairing correctly. Might have to see if this USB thing in the back will just connect directly at some point. Okay, that works. Okay, this is the way to go. I think the way you're pointing out to me, I think is the way to go. That's what my intuition says. Like, forget all the venting stuff. All right, so another thing I learned, I thought it might work this way already, but the built-in input system for the left stick is not suitable for, I'll say, for lack of a better word, puzzle game input. Any input where you really want to treat it like a button press because it's a distinct action that means something important in the game. It's too sensitive. So I have to do something like I was drawing the other day where if the X and Y value on the stick is enough that it's unambiguously right, as opposed to just a little bit right, or kind of up and right and down and left diagonals, I have to kind of block out all those ambiguous inputs. So I have to make an algorithm. I think you're pointing me to something pre-existing. I mean, it's not a hard algorithm. I just have to make it. Okay. All right, so let's think about this. Okay, the first thing I want to do is just verify that I have all the inputs I need, and after that I can okay, vector 2 dot. If two directions point in the same direction, you get 1. If opposite, -1. Yeah, but how does that cancel input? Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Anyways, I'm just My brain's jumping around too much to what you're saying. I'm just sort of making a note for now. Vector2 dot for input masking on left stick. Drifter! Well, the thing is, I've only done like three streams over the last 3 days, and there was just a gulf of Twitch inactivity over the months prior. But yeah, I'm going to be on Twitch on the regular, probably every day for the most part, because I've got just debugging work to do. No spoilers. I mean, there might be a few spoiler sessions or times when I avoid Twitch because I'm doing something that is a little spoilerish. And no audio editing. I finished all that up. It's like the most boring and obnoxious thing to show on Twitch is audio editing. Yeah, please do. I love it when you hang out. How's your internet connection up there in Canada? I know you were having some trouble before. I think I'm remembering right. Okay, yeah, that was you. Okay. I hate that thing with internet connectivity when you just don't have enough options. I've been in like certain locations and it was like I can pay $100 a month for good internet, or I can pay $17.99 for crap internet. Phone company or cable company. Or then there's like crazy, like people are gonna lay fiber to your house for $5,000 type nonsense. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So let me do my first thing I want to do, which is just be certain I can get all the inputs I'm going to need. And even before that, let me do a little cleanup on my input actions. For one, I want to rename these to be what is actually going on in my game. Alright, so I got keyboard mappings. I just said I'll just make arrow keys in WASD. I've not yet encountered anyone that couldn't deal with one of those two things and be happy. I figure people have got super non-standard keyboards, they can do their own kind of remapping. Thank you, sir. And then that might save me 1 or 2 days creating a keyboard redefinition type screen. Yeah. In a patch, I do actually want to make a keyboard redef screen, but I'm trying to save some time. Okay, then I did some polling, not computer polling, but people polling. I found out that you need to have support for the left stick and the D-pad, both of them, rather than just one, even though I would have preferred to maybe only say D-pad, because people have strong preferences and they're different controllers. In some cases, one of these options is just really sucky. So I've got D-pad, left stick, WASD, and up, down, left arrow, right keyboards for my basic movement. I have an escape action. Oh, I need to add a keyboard command for that. It didn't work with listen. I gotta select it maybe. Yeah. That's why I didn't go in before. Where are you at? Where are you at? Escape. There we go. Alright, then fling. I'm giving them the A button, the right trigger, or either left or right shift key. So save that. This is a pretty nice interface for defining this stuff, I have to admit. I was grumpy about it before, but it's not bad. Yeah. That's a thing I'm trying to do is I'm always in such a griping mode all the time. Like when I see something that actually works pretty decently, I want to call it out, and it kind of puts my brain back in balance. Not so grouchy all the time. You think grouchy thoughts all the time, you become a grouchy old man. The neurons just set in that way. Okay, so now I've got the input actions are pretty good. Let's just set up north action, south action. Okay. Those make me think a little bit about what I'm going to need to make sense of that analog stick. And these input actions that are defined for north, south, west, east, they may not give the right information for that stick analysis, like with the dot product or however we do it. I might need to set up a separate action which doesn't have a button value but has like a joystick value or stick value. Well, here's my quandary. Not a quandary, just something I'm slightly uncertain about. So this guy is set up as a button type. And the issue is with a puzzle game, using this action as being like on or off, it's gonna be too sensitive. That's what I'm thinking actually. So let's add another action, and I think that would mean I'll remove left stick from these bindings on these other actions. So we'll say analog movement. It might not be the best name, but I'm gonna have to set the type. You're saying axis, but that'll give me, I think, just one dimension, right? So I'll do value. So axis is one choice. I noticed when I was trying to do the mapping earlier, it would either let me do x-axis or y-axis. Do you think I'd be better off with axis and then maybe setting up one for each dimension? There's another one, stick. And at least when I did the binding, instead of being confined to one axis, it was, wait a minute. That's weird. Oh, I gotta come down here for the binding. Drifter, yeah, you do you. Glad to have you around. Thanks, man. Okay, so then I come here, say listen. get the left stick. Well, I could definitely work with that. I could do analog movement X and analog movement Y. Wonder if there's, this is probably a good time to just see if I can find it in the documentation. Okay, so Unity search is not as good as outside search's input system. Let's see, stick binding, try that. No, just give me the official Unity docs. Stick. Oh, it has something in processors for dead zones. I think that dead zone thing is what I'm trying to implement. I got you. Yeah. Okay. I'm looking for something else. Let's see, events. No, that's not what I want. Input action. Let's look at input action. Unity input action. Yeah, I just want to see the input action class because that'll tell me what members I can look at to pull on. So just intuitively, it seems like a vector 2 might be something I can read a value and get an X and a Y with. Yeah, it kind of looks like that's exactly what they're doing here. Let me try that first before I get all tricky with the dead zones. Okay. Analog movement. Okay. Then I guess let's remove this guy from here. Save that again. See, it's just, it automatically rewrites this file over here too, which is pretty nice. Okay. So, okay. Just make make sure all these are assigned. Kinda. You know, when I can move a little bit faster. And also, just, I really am going to enjoy playing the game with a controller. I will. And there's a history to that. The first big game that I made that was actually released to the world was doomed not to be able to support, not to have good controller support. Because it used like these diagonal key presses and stuff, and there's just no way it's going to work in a nice way. So this game I specifically designed to make it so you could use a controller with it. Learning from my mistakes. Yeah, just as far as programming goes, just as soon as I can get to the point where it just feels like there's nothing slowing me down from coding, then I do enjoy it. I do enjoy that. It's all the little points where you hit a roadblock and when some big container ship in front of you goes sideways and you can't get through the goddamn canal. That's the parts I hate about programming. Alright. So then okay. So I guess I'll just make a big old dumb just output anything that seems to be active. Okay. So what was it? Fling active. Or you know what I could do? I could use this button. Whenever this button is on, I will output a snapshot of the current state. That way I won't have like a massive trace log to look at all the time. Okay, if it is flinging, output state, output input state. Log, output, input state. There we go. Input, okay, fling input, north action, south action, west action, east action, escape. let's. Oh, I call them action? Yeah. Let's always be. Why do I call them all action? That's not right. Be consistent. Lack of inconsistency, it's like just technical debt. Maybe that's an overstatement, but it does feel like if I just keep on putting in junky names of things, eventually it'll bite me in the ass. Okay. Or I'll have to think about the code longer each time I look at it because I've given things bad names. Okay, so this is going to be north input. Let's see where we're at. Okay, we go. This stuff I can just delete. No longer need callbacks. At least I don't think I will need it. Oops. Okay, what is your beef? I don't like that. Change that rule sometime. Okay. All right, feeling optimistic. Okay, let's see what it told us. So it gave us just one binary for the fling button being pressed. Makes sense. North, south, west, east, all inactive, escape inactive, fling active. Okay. Oh, and also it just repeated this for multiple frames because it was a period of time where fling was still up. So let's just make this a little bit nicer. And say that it has to be a new button press. So bool was flinging. Or you could just say is fling, was flinging, is flinging. Okay. have to click on the screen. Yeah. Remember when I was complaining about the callbacks not being called? I didn't click on the screen inside of the editor. Once I did, it worked. Let's see, fling 1. Okay, that all looks healthy. So let's see what happens. So I've got the left stick pointed left. Bam. What we got? There we go. Analog movement. -1, -0.1. Cool. Okay. I really expect everything else to work. Maybe that's not good testing though. So let's actually check it. Okay. Okay. So I'm just looking at the diagonal case. That's kind of weird. Okay. No, it makes sense. It makes sense. Cool. Okay, what about keyboards? So if I'm holding down on the right key, I got east. Good. Left key, bam, got it. West, north, south, all good. Let's see. Shift, yeah, shift works. Shift, shift, shift. Trigger works. D-pad. Yep. Okay, it's making sense. So now, dead zone implementation. Let us take a look back at what Cicada wrote about the dot product. Dot 0 equals up or down. 1 equals exactly right. Okay, well, let's just start by doing some debug logging to see what the dot product turns up. So that's pretty easy to check. Let me look at your code again. Oh, huh. Oh, yeah, you wrote something different. Okay, vector 2 right. Takes a vector 2. So, okay, yeah. There's 2 vector 2. But how am I? Okay, normalized. Okay, so that means if I say normalized, I think it already is normalized. That means it would be clamped to between 0 and 1. Not just clamp, scaled, but the value looks like it's been scaled to 0 and 1. They're not normalized from controller. Well, all I'm saying is that when I read this value as a vector 2 from the input action, the values are between 0 and 1. To me, that indicates they're normalized. But you're saying there's an additional worry there? Some other problem? Or I did not see 1, 1, to be honest. I saw maybe 0.8, 0.8. In the actual input, that value that came into this. But yeah, you can have like 1, 1, and Pythagorean theorem can give you more. Okay. Okay, so maybe this value I'm getting from here is, it could have a much wider range of values on different controllers. Let me look at what normalized actually does for vector 2. Unity, vector 2, normalize. Okay, so I think what this means is that suppose some input comes in and it's got like x equals 2. It would take the value that was over 1 and it would say to get it to 1, we'll treat 2 as a maximum. We will I guess what I'm missing is how normalized would have enough information to properly set the value to something that was correct. Because if it doesn't know the maximum range that the input values can be in, how would it know to scale the value correctly inside of 0 and 1? My math might be failing me, but for me it's like I thought normalizing was you would I think I get it. I get it. Okay, so suppose your input was x equals 1, y equals 1. The length of that is going to be like 1.2 something. You know, it's going to, using Pythagorean theorem, you could say that the distance equals something greater than 1. What normalized would do is reduce these values, x and y, such that your distance would be 1. So, yeah, okay, I get it. Now it makes sense. Now I understand it. Okay, so this should do the trick, even if the inputs I'm getting are already normalized, like maybe Unity was smart enough to do that. This is a totally safe operation to perform in either case. Okay. So I think we're ready to test this out and just see what it provides. Oh. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm going to do right next. Okay, up, right, diagonal. What? Lost my fling? Oh, no, I got to click on the screen. There we go. So analog movement, this is up, right, diagonal. The dot, 0.82. Okay, so if I go straight up, the dot, it approaches 0. If I go straight down, the dot again approaches 0. Left, it approaches -1, right, approaches 1. Just like you're saying. Just like you're saying in Discord. Okay, so I could implement a dead zone based on the dot product. I could say we are not accepting inputs today. I didn't mean like a dead zone processor. I meant like the concept of a dead zone. So here's my first run-in algorithm is my first attempt at it is, okay, if the dot product is not within a certain range of 0, 1, or -1, then I don't accept any inputs from the left stick. So we could say, just kind of looking at this, maybe 0.1. So if I'm just slightly diagonal, no, that's still pretty close. 0.666, okay. Yeah, but there's some threshold like that. We can play with it too. Yeah, and I'll probably be a little bit harsh on that threshold just because it means a lot if you push that diagonal and you go up instead of left and you meant left. It means a really bad thing could happen. Really unsatisfying thing could happen for the player. So I'll probably be a little harsh on it. Okay. So yeah, let's just write this. I don't think it's going to be too hard. Let's see. No. Direction. There we go. Okay. Get direction from analog movement. vector 2, movement, float, no, vector 2, and a log. Let's see. Yes, that's your threshold constant. Is that what window size is? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Why is it suddenly balking? What's the problem? Oh, it's a float value. That's why. Const float dead zone threshold. We'll start with 0.3. Okay, let's say there's going to be a more elegant way to write this, but let me just first off I can do if dot greater than equal dead zone threshold and dot less than equal might as well make this be constant. Lower threshold, make this const float dead zone upper threshold. Okay. Well, so just thinking about like the different inputs that come in, essentially what you wrote here. And we'll say -1 equals exactly left. Okay. Okay, and you're saying just have a larger threshold. I think that's all you're saying, but I mean that's fine. Okay, so no, okay. Yeah, because this would mean nothing matches against it when I apply that logic. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. This is like I've got some thoughts. You can just dot against vector up, left, down. I don't know. This is like Google Maps and somebody and me like having like you know directions to go someplace. I either kind of want to follow my thought process or I just want to say, okay, Google Maps, just tell me what to do. Just tell me what to do. If I mix them up, then it usually doesn't work as well. So I don't know. I could keep going, or I could just like stop and say, what should I type in? Dot against the cardinal vectors, then. Dot against the cardinal vectors. Okay. I don't understand why okay, you know what? I know what I'm going to end up saying you were right at some point, but just for my own mental engagement with the task, I'm going to keep going the way I was going to do it. I'm going to see what happens. Otherwise, my brain goes to sleep, and I'm like, what? Just tell me what to do. Okay. So let's see. We go. So my assertion is that this will give us a value between 0 and 1. Okay, and I'm interested in accepting input when it's very close to 0 or very close to 1. Okay, let me see what you're saying then. Float. Right dot equals, okay, vector 2 dot. Okay, so in the case that you're describing, I would do 4 dot products, and I would just be looking for a value that's close to 1. That's it, right? So if I do a vector 2 up, then that's going to mean that the value 1 is going to represent unambiguous right. I mean, up. Yeah. Okay. I'm following along with you. Okay, let's do. I hope these aren't expensive calculations. They can't be. This modern day computer. Yeah. So let's just say, let's bring this back down to that. And actually, let's flip it like you're saying. So we'll just say if don't need the ABS. Let's normalize one time. Vector 2 analog movement. Say again. Okay, if greater than equal dead zone threshold, turn direction east. Okay, let's do the same for all these. Left, left, up, north, and this should be west, down, south. Otherwise, none, nothing. Okay. I think I've got on this guy a 2-string. I hope I do. Let's see. No, I do not. Okay. Yeah, as soon as I said it, I'm like, no, it's not gonna be something to worry about. You gotta understand, I came up on old machines. Used to worry about things like calling cosine or sine functions. It's almost embarrassing how much power these computers have. Well, it is embarrassing not for the amount of power the computers have, but the embarrassing thing is what programmers do with all that extra power. Basically, Jonathan Blow rant. Okay. See how this goes. See, did we get north? We did. All right, let me make this output a little less busy. I'm going to be looking at just a little bit of the stuff here, not all of it. Okay, north. Oh, click on the screen. North. No, no. There we go. Okay. Tiny little bit to the right of north. Not dramatically diagonal though. Let's go a little more. Okay, a little more. A little more. It's too not dead zoney. Because it went right from north to east. There was no dead zone. I've definitely got way off in the diagonal spot. So I think I'll have to play with that dead zone value. Yeah, there's no dead zone. Okay. Let's just set this to be just to make it like brutally obvious that the dead zone's in play. I'll put it all the way up to 0.9. That might be too much, but I just want to make sure I've got a dead zone. There we go, none. Yes, none. None. Yeah, I like it. Actually, 0.9 isn't bad for my purposes. It could be something I can tweak a little bit. It's cool. So if I just, without trying to get a specific angle, if I just kind of like instinctively go north, it shows north. South, it shows south. If I go a little bit sloppy, none. Okay, I've got a dead zone. I mean, it can be tweaked as I go, but it seems correct to me. The algorithm functions as intended. So the next part of this is going to be hooking it all up to the game input system that is actually used to move the character. That thought occurred to me as well. It may be a little bit easier for me to add that in after I've got hooked up to the game proper, so I can test it out that way. I'm going to take maybe a 5-minute break to make myself a little sandwich, a little snack, and I head back up here. Get myself some more coffee. I'll be back 5 to 10 minutes. Cool, buddy. Thanks for the help. It was very helpful. All right, put it on the status screen. Oh, yeah. Think I got the screen turned off because I'm munching on my sandwich and it's kind of gross to eat on camera. let's get back to it. I had a tasty sandwich of my own creation. Crispy chicken, sharp cheddar cheese, a hint of buffalo sauce, which was left over from a delivery order from some other restaurant. Toasted white bread, mayo, pickles. Proper sandwich. All right. So now it feels like I get to do more interesting stuff. But I want to switch from writing maybe junky test code to setting up my classes and stuff in a sensible way. So I have this earlier interface here. I think I could just take the exact same interface that was already working and reuse it. This is a poorly named function. Okay, this isn't bad. But yeah, let me plan this out though. Let me plan it out. Okay, my requirements. All existing keyboard input works as previously, including shift plus direction flinging, key repeat, let's see, hold down on key repeat, I'll just say other subtleties. So that probably means bringing across the logic that was already there that currently just checks to see, is this single key, or actually there's two keys, are either of these keys up or down, and just replacing that with checks to the input state. But I want to probably bring across that logic without changing it much, or copy it across then hook it up differently as opposed to recreating from scratch, because there's hard-earned knowledge inside of that logic. Okay. Stick control. Let's see. Controller input also works. And I'm thinking, what am I truly after here? And it works same as keyboard until a case is found where it should be different. So basically I will begin with the assumption that all of the controller input that I use will just have the same logic applied to it as the keyboard input does, until I find the case where it should be different, just to make the player more happy or something like that. So I'll start with that. Input should also apply to meta screens. Level selector. Selector settings, etc. Okay. Cheat keys. Mapping. No, cheat keys need to continue working. I need to not say how I'll implement it in the requirements section. I just need to say what needs to be accomplished by the implementation. Okay. Dry. I mean, I'll probably want to divide up the modules such that, like some things like that dead zone algorithm might be shared between like the level selector and settings screens. That, but in that case, anyways, yeah, just dry principles. Okay, solution number one. Create input util class, static class for any common functions like dead zone. Added a cheat key mapping. Create game input meta input. Classes that derive from game object. Now that's a question. That's a question. Do I really need to derive these from game object? I'm not a fan of using game object unless I truly need it. I prefer to initialize classes explicitly, call code explicitly, like update methods and stuff like that. Game input, meta input, have same interface for returning command. Okay. Number two, same as number one, but don't use game object. I'm not certain if that works yet. I don't know, because sometimes Unity classes, they're expecting to, I don't know. It probably works. Let me just take a quick look. So I come over to game input 2. So I've got this awake method, but I don't really need that event. I can have it. I could change this to init. Have it be a public init function, and just call it in my initialization. Well, there's this on enable, on disable thing. Let me educate myself on what that event actually means. Unity on enable. Does it mean the app gets enabled, or is it on enable? It's on enable. Okay. Yeah, I mean, this says, okay, that says that, but do I really need this? And what is it that causes this to be called? I mean, how is this different from start, for example? Is there some other behavior, like if I tab away from the app, should it disable at that point? If I come back to, this is really terrible documentation. I do kind of remember there's some description somewhere of like all the lifecycle events. Okay, Unity lifecycle events. Let's take a look at that. Yeah. Okay, is on enable in here? Here's on disable. Okay, decommissioning. Calling if on that. So it's called just after the object is enabled or when a game object with the script components is instantiated. Okay. To me, it just means, yeah, I don't know. Okay. So why wouldn't I just call that same code in awake or the init function? Well, there's one way to figure this out. Let's say on enable. Here we say on disable. So I'm doing this test to figure out if I need to have a game object or not. Because my preference is always not to have a game object. Well, not always, but to be more explicit in how I control when things are going to be initialized instead of letting the event system decide for me. Okay, clear. So I just got an on disable when I left, or when I unplayed. So I assume if I hit play, I'll get an on enable. Okay. If I tab away, does it disable? It does not. So far it's no different than awake. Although, yeah, so far I can't see any practical difference between awake. I mean, I know that if I load another scene, it'll disable. But that would also be analogous to I mean, I could just use awake or init for that too. I just don't know what magic I get from on enable and on disable. Also, I feel like I will just use one player control system. I don't need to have multiples like for different screens or anything like that. I will need, or one action map is all I need. I only need one action map. This will handle all my different screens. So I could simply put the game input controller inside of my booter, which is just a big don't destroy object. And when it's initialized, it will enable the control system. And when, I mean, who even cares about disabling it when the app exits? Wouldn't just the app exiting disable it anyways? I think the disablement is only valuable if you are transitioning to different action maps inside of the same app, inside of the same game. I'm not going to do that. So okay, so for this one it would be game object. Let's see. Yeah, this doesn't quite make sense. I mean, I almost don't even want to like think out how this would work, because it's a mess. This solution is a mess, having it set up this way. Game object for game input and meta input goes insane object. Problems. Just reminding myself it hasn't been thought out. Okay. Let's just make a settled section of stuff that I'm pretty sure I'm going to do for any of the solutions. Okay. Game input will be bootable. Meta input bootable. I don't even need that, really. Okay. Number 3. I just need one object that all it does is enable that one action map at boot. So let's call it, man, there's already things called input manager. Let's say input. It can be input manager in my namespace instead of Unity's. Input manager bootable And all it does is enable controls gameplay. I might rename this action map because it sounds like it's for other stuff. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so if there's input manager bootable, it's got the reference to the player controller in it. I do want to be shared reference for these other ones. So the question is for game input and meta input. How do I want them to be initialized? I think constructor, okay, just a regular class. Constructor passes input manager s, my static instance. Get controls, or get what kind of name do I want for that? Get, what is this thing actually? It's not that. Player controls. Pass. Okay, get player controls. That's it. Get player controls, or I could do a property. Do a property. Regular class. Okay. And these. Okay. These. This is instanced in main object init, main object update calls game input get command once update. I just don't like that name of that method. Okay, meta input, same, but for meta input, and the nice thing about this is I can just look through all the places in the code that currently access game input or meta input, and just if there's any interface changes, make sure they're updated. But all the client code for getting the current command is just all there. So all I have to do is just look up game input and meta input and make sure it's hooked up correctly to these new classes. So I think number 3 is the right way to go. And that's the way I'm going to do it. Problem with this, minus confusing scene object lifetime issues. Like if the scene is unloading and the game object that was responsible for game input is unloading at the same time, then I gotta do something like disable the player controls, and then whatever scene is loading in, have to make sure it enables it, so it's still, so the new scene object is going to be responsible for the input. So I would rather just avoid any class of bugs related to that switchover by having some of this stuff in a don't destroy object that lives between scenes. And number 2 would kind of do that, but then that would require me to put more in bootable than I actually need. And there would be maybe some questions about if both of these creatures are living in bootable and they both have an instance to the player controls object and they both enable it, does that cause issues? Confusing, bug risky with 2 classes creating separate instances of player controls. Maybe no problem at all, but my instincts say that don't have 2 instance classes at the same time with their own separate instances of player controls. And this one seems safe to me. This one seems pretty good. I can't see any downside to it, so I'm going to go with this one. This is all settled now. And I'll have to do something for cheat codes too. I can probably hook it into a made input class, or let's see, what's the right way to do that? All right, let's put this all in settled. And I'll continue thinking about cheat keys. Number 1. Add to meta input. How does meta input work now? It's just got some methods, and they return booleans. It's like is escape key, is exiting. So I could add a few more methods to it. Add cheat keys to meta input. Number 2. Create cheat keys input class. I think I've just got one cheat key right now. Okay, there is one plus to this, which is easier to remember where cheat keys are. I think it's cleaner. Let's go with that. Oh, I could make my Yeah, let's do it. Let's just add the cheat key mapping. I think right now we'll have skip level. Ooh, one thing that I do not understand. There is some input handling built into Unity's UI. I'm not really checking for individual key presses when it's being handled. It just sort of works. You press down, it goes to the next thing. You press tab, it goes to the next thing. I'm curious, after moving to the input system, if that stuff still works. If I say escape, oh, I can't even hit escape. Because the input manager is not there. Okay. So that is another thing to figure out. Let me see. Unity, use controller with, what do you call it? UI, I guess. Yeah, this one. This is what I want. 2016 is pre-input system.
Hey everybody, this is Games Plus James, and today we're going to take a look at how to add controller and keyboard navigation to your game. So you don't have to do any movement with your mouse to interact with your menus. You can make the game wholly dependent on just using a controller or just using a keyboard. So I'm just going to show what I've got set up here, a very simple little menu. I'm going to press play here. Essentially this pause menu, you can see the game isn't actually paused at the moment. But we'll talk about why this is set up like this in a moment. We've got simple resume, so I can resume and then I can hit pause, it'll bring it back up again. I've got a very simple options menu. This is just to demonstrate going into another menu. And this button that does nothing, that's just to allow us to be able to click on something to demonstrate some other stuff. Okay, so let's take a look at what happens at the moment. So by default, when you set up a menu like this in Unity, if I go ahead and play my game here, if I'm using a controller, if I use my controller here now, I can press different directions and nothing happens. So if I go out of this pause menu, and if I'm playing my game, running around or whatever, and I pause it, no matter what direction I press, nothing happens with my menu.
Yep.
So that's obviously not great at all. Now, one thing we can do with very static menus in Unity, so this won't work for a pause screen, but maybe for the main menu of your game, what you can do is go to the event system. The event system is always generated when you create a new canvas in Unity. So the event system object, if you look over here in the event system component, there's a space here for the first selected. So this will be the first object that's selected when your scene starts. So I could go here and I could get this resume button, drop that in there, and now when I press play, you'll see, oh look, the resume button is highlighted. So now I could move up and down, and that would be really good. For example, on a main menu, that would work very well because you could just have your options for play the game or quit the game. But here in a pause menu or any other kind of menu, basically, this really won't work very well So, for example, if I go and resume now, so if I press the resume button and if I hit escape, oh, our highlight disappeared. But actually it's still there, so I just press down there. The first button remains highlighted. It doesn't show up as highlighted, but it remains selected according to Unity. So then when you press the direction, it does work, but obviously that's not great. You want it to look like it's highlighted. Another issue is if I go into the options menu now, oh, I can't navigate this options menu. I'm moving the directions in the background here, and if I move upwards to the very top and hit enter, you can see I was still working in that first menu system. So if I just, to demonstrate that, if I just pause, just play it again here, and I've just paused for a second, if I turn this options menu on and just drag it over to the side, I'll actually just leave this options menu deactivated. So if I resume here, and if I turn on the options, you can see, rather than going to this new options, I'm still highlighting in this menu. So we've got a bunch of little issues which are a problem. And another significant problem with this is if I have my pause menu off by default and then press play, now if I press the pause button, oh, that first item isn't even highlighted at all.
Right.
So obviously you can see that using the event system,
I kind of feel like I don't need to listen to the whole thing, and he's going to go off in some areas I don't care about. What he did hint at, though, was that there's some way to configure the canvases that are used. So that it picks up on actions. So let me see if there's something like that. Okay, standalone input module. Okay. So this uses the old input manager. And I know that won't work at all. I do need to use a new input system. So I think I've already burnt that bridge. I'll just do that. Okay. Event system. Okay, the thing that's missing for me is how does it map the action map how does it take the action map that I defined over here for player controls with these north, south, west, east, etc. and apply that to this stuff over here. Do I need to create some action that has the same name as this? Is there a default one set up? Oh, well, it does say default input actions. Okay. So I could change the actions asset to be this one, player controls. And that would probably allow me to, in the drop downs here, pick other actions to use instead. Now there are some that are defined in the default input actions that I don't have in mind, which are pretty good. So I don't have point, click, middle click, right click, scroll. I don't have any of the mouse stuff basically. Input system UI input module. Yeah, that's what this component is. So it does seem pretty safe for me to switch over to player controls for a moment. Okay, and then it gives me the list of my own. Oh, I'm sorry. Here, let me fix that. No problem. Yeah. There we go. So basically, I was independently arriving at the same thing you were talking about. You were right. It was smart enough to figure out that escape probably meant cancel. Nice job. Here, the trick might be that I need to add one more action. Yeah. It should work fine. There might be some tweaks that are needed for it. I might have to create like one more navigation action that includes both the D-pad and the left stick that's only used for this, because this will let me pick like analog movement, which will give me the left stick, but it would not currently give me the D-pads, which I've got mapped out to individual buttons. But that all seems surmountable. So yeah, if this works, I'll give Unity some credit for making a pretty sensible system. And I'll have to figure out what the mouse stuff is that goes into. Now I'm thinking like maybe I should create a separate action map just for the meta. I don't know if it, yeah, it does. Like particularly if I'm creating like one action map that's kind of a union of what I need in the game and in the meta areas. Yeah, it's kind of confusing. It's not very clean to look at. Okay, so that does change my design a little bit. I think I'll undo this just so I can... Oh, you won't give me the defaults? Okay, then let's do replace. Okay, yeah, then I get all those back in. Alright, so I'll save that. Okay, so it does feel like I do want a separate action map. Okay. So if that's true, then probably... Hey, now you're back. Let me ask you a question I wasn't quite sure of even with research. There's some code inside of here, on enable, on disable. And I looked up the Unity event lifetime thing, and this is just gonna get fired when a scene loads, and maybe just a little before or just a little after on awake. I could just throw this in on awake, or my init function, because I want to get decoupled from the event system a little bit. Disable gets called when scene unload happens. It seems like I don't really need to have these two things attached to on enable and on disable, Unity lifetime events. But I couldn't find a lot of documentation on enable and on disable. Yeah. And there's no resource cleanup around it. Like if the app exits and I don't disable, it's not like there's going to be some background thread someplace checking on the input after the app exited. After the app exits, it's nothing is going to be pulling the controllers. So there's no... Yeah. Okay. All right, so I gotta revise this a little bit. Since I'll have two action maps, each one has an instance to to an action map. Player controls, let's see. Game controls, meta controls. Okay. Enable both at boot time. Okay, Cicada, catch you later. You mean you're not solely here to support my effort and my work here? You mean you got some of your own shit going on too? Okay, enable both boot time. As I do currently. Same interfaces, they have separate interfaces, but I'm just saying we don't have to change that current interface much. Okay, and this becomes game input, bootable. Nope. Nope. Okay. Just have cheat keys go through. TK is in command, returned in command object. Okay. Then also needs to match needs to have actions that can go into input system UI input module. Input system UI input module. What a terrible name. Input module. Properties. Component properties. All right. I think I got it. I think I got it. So let me do my input maps first, or action maps. Okay, I feel like some of these should be renamed. No, gameplay is a good name. It has become a good name. Okay, so then let's create Meta. Actually, go back to gameplay and let's add cheat, skip level, and let's see. Okay, this is an action button. Good. Okay, binding will be boom. There we go. And DZ, good to see you, fella. How's stuff going for you? Pretty good. I've got 36 days before release, and I got a plan to get everything done by then. Today I'm working on hooking up a game controller to my input system. I had to redo my input system to support controllers, and I found out that the Xbox controller from my Xbox will work with my Mac, and that's nice, because I guess that's a very popular choice for Steam players to use the Xbox controller. So I'm testing with that. I did some testing earlier today just to make sure I get all the inputs I wanted, and now I'm kind of hooking up everything in a well-architected way. At least I hope it will be. So first I did some hacking, now I'll do some engineering. Yeah. I really like the Xbox controller. I've liked it since the 360. Good piece of hardware. Feels good in your hand. lasts a long time. Like, they aren't junk. It's a quality piece of hardware. Also, they seem to be. Maybe they're not. It seems like maybe they're subsidized. Because like you buy the hardware for a console, and you're usually getting a pretty good deal on the hardware itself, with the expectation that you'll pay more for games, and then Microsoft or whoever will get paid back on that. So, yeah, Xbox controller seems like a good choice for a controller. Just from a player's perspective, from a developer's perspective, I'm glad that a whole bunch of people like that controller, because I'm testing with it. Yeah. Cicada dug up some stats for me. I think it was like 68% of Steam players use Xbox One controllers. So PS4 would be the next one they use. 20-something% with that, and the remaining 10% with their third-party controllers. What kinds of projects are you into these days? Actually, the last one you were on, I'm not sure if you're still on. You were contributing to a game project with this other guy. You had some PRs open, and it seemed like you might have been taking a little bit long to get to your PRs and decide whether to merge them or not. I think that was the last I heard about that project that you were on, but also I forgot the name of it. Well, I did decide, based on some things you told me, maybe it's almost over a year now, ago, I decided to open source the game after I release it, just without all the media in it. Basically because I had some experience with that model before, with a game project that worked fine, and then what you said was it's so easy to decompile and get all the assets and stuff anyways, that the game is still there, available for anyone to do what they want with it, for modding purposes. So I felt like, at least if people may end up deciding to mod the game, that's kind of a good thing for me. I figure, if anything, I ought to make it possible for people to add or mod to the game in a more architecturally sound way. And if I'm lucky and some people do get involved with open source aspects of it, I might find a pool of people that I can say, hey, do you want to add this feature for X number of dollars as a contractor? So it's potentially a way to make it easier to see who would be good to get help from on different commercial aspects of the game. Yeah. I've had good luck with that model before. Tried GitHub. Yeah, this is code that is still alive and being updated, that was originally created mid-90s. I haven't been active in this code base for a long time, but yeah, it's very healthy. And also the guy who's serving as the maintainer, who owns the company and the game that initially made, I sold it to him. He's continued to make commercial releases of the game with this sort of open source community working around him at the same time. So it definitely is a good way to go if you get the right mindset for it and the right people. There's a little extra work in having good relationships with the community. Okay. All right, so let's do this input stuff. So the first thing I was going to do is set up the action maps. I was going to create a new one for Meta. I should figure out what it's expecting to get in all of these. Point, click, middle click, right click. Okay, so input system UE input module. Let's look at the docs. Cool. Okay, let's see. Okay, what is that big long name again? Input system UE input module. Input system UE input module, input system input. Entity. Okay. So just tell me what it is you're expecting to be in each action. Okay, this is good. Okay, so system boolean means I should expect it'll be a button. Okay. I guess let's just go through, do them one at a time. New action. Point. Mouse. Pointer. Okay, mouse. Yeah. Okay, let me see if I can find the documentation on default input actions. So I just want to give it exactly what it's expecting to get. Okay, Unity default input actions. actions. Ah. So there's action. It's part of the default input actions map. Oh, I can open it up. Okay, cool. Ah. Yes. Okay, so we'll go to UE. Okay, they're all right here. Okay, can I just copy this? Can I just copy it? Copy it, bring it back over. Paste. Okay. Delete. Okay, this is the way to do it. This is the way. So I'm just curious. So you said action type pass through vector 2. Cool. And you grabbed bindings from the mouse, a pen, touch position. Okay, cool. So this means I'm going to be able to have exactly the same things I would have gotten from the other action. Wonder if I can copy a number of them together. Can. Okay. Copy those. You know what? Just keep this simple. Delete everything. Copy everything. There we go. This one, delete. Okay, now I feel like I've got the same stuff, even if it's in a different order. That probably does not matter. Okay. Cancels anything. What is this track device? Yeah, I don't know what that is. Okay, so if I take this and I say, oh, I don't have the new thing saved yet. Okay. Okay, so take that, player controls, okay. And then, yeah, it figured out, it made some good guesses about how they should map based on names and other matching stuff perhaps. And that seems pretty good. And if it's not exactly right, I can tweak it. But I know at least I have a starting point of actions that are the same as what Unity had for its defaults. Okay, cheat skip level, got that. My design here got a little bit confused because player controller is it's going to be one for both types of action maps. There'll be one instance of player controller. I thought there'd be two. There's only going to be one. Okay. So if that's the case, I'll change this back to Input Manager, bootable. Let's make Input Manager next. What do I have to implement? Boot. That would be the big one right there. Okay. So Input Manager implements boot. There's no possible behavior. There's no dependencies I need to worry about. Okay, here's where I would load in the player controls. And we'll say controls, gameplay, enable, controls, meta, enable. That might be enable, disable, based on active screen. But it may not matter, so I'll just leave it alone if it doesn't seem to cause any problems. Okay, and then let's just make this a public property. I always forget the syntax on properties. It's like C# property getter. No, I don't want to see all this stuff. Just give me, okay, there we go. Yeah, there we go. Alright, so public int, age, get. I don't want to set. Do like well, I would like one without. Yeah, this is what I want. And we'll do this as controls. Yeah. Well. Oh, my wife's hungry. What? That won't be true. There we go. There we go. What? No, because it will be needed to be public later. Okay, so that does that. Alright, my wife's hungry. I gotta get her some snacks or something. It sounds like I'm annoyed. I am maybe Slavic, but my love for my wife is much greater than my annoyance. I'm being interrupted in the middle of a task I'm quite interested in. But I'm going to stop the stream here. DZ, thanks for hanging out. I may be back on later. If not, I'll see you around when I see you around. If anybody else is lurking. Drifter, whoever. Have a nice night. Cool. See you later.